All right, today we are jumping into a true classic, Essie Hinton's The Outsiders. What's incredible is that she wrote this as a teen, and she just perfectly captured those brutal lines we all draw between us and them, you know? It's a story about what happens when those lines get crossed, and how in the end, loyalty is the only thing you have left when the world has already slapped a label on you. So here's how we're going to walk through it. We'll start with this world, completely split in two. Then, we'll see how one single night spirals out of control, pushing two boys right over the edge. We're going to follow them on the run and watch as everything builds to a violent climax that costs them dearly. And finally, we'll see how one of them figures out how to make sense of it all.
Okay, let's dive in. To really get this world, you have to see it through the eyes of our narrator. He's a 14-year-old kid, a greaser, who honestly doesn't feel like he fits in anywhere. Not really. He's just trying to find his way in a world that's already made up its mind about him.
And here he is, Ponyboy Curtis. You can tell right from this first line, his head is in a different place, right? He's thinking about movies, he's reading books, he's noticing sunsets. And that makes him a bit of an outsider even within his own gang. He's always caught between the sensitive kid he is on the inside and the tough guy he's supposed to be on the outside. And this, right here, is the heart of the whole conflict. Ponyboy's world isn't just split by a set of train tracks, it's split by money, by class. You've got the greasers from the poor east side, and you've got the Socs, that's short for socials, from the rich west side. In his town, that's the whole game. You're one or the other. There's no in between.
And you can just see how deep that divide is. I mean, it's in the clothes they wear, the cars they drive, but for the greasers, it's really all about the hair. That long, greased hair is their trademark. It's their identity. When you can't afford the fancy cars and Madras shirts the Socs have, your hair is the one thing you can be proud of. For Ponyboy and his buddies, a lot of whom come from pretty broken homes, the gang is, well, it's everything. It's not just a bunch of friends. It is their family. They've got this fierce loyalty to each other because they have to. In a world that just writes them off as a bunch of hoods, they're all they've got. You know, with this much tension just simmering under the surface, you just knew it was going to boil over eventually. And all it took was one chance meeting, a couple of wrong moves, and a single night for everything to completely fall apart. It all kicks off, believe it or not, at a drive-in movie. Ponyboy and his best friend Johnny end up talking to a couple of Sock girls, Cherry and Marcia. And for just a minute, that huge gap between their worlds seems to shrink. Cherry says this line, "Things are rough all over," and it's a shock. You get this little glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, they're not so different after all. But that little moment of connection, yeah, that just makes the Sox boys even angrier. So later that night, after Ponyboy gets in a fight with his brother and runs off, he and Johnny get cornered by the Sox in a park. And it all goes wrong fast. The Sox start drowning Ponyboy in this freezing fountain, and a terrified Johnny Cade, well, he makes a choice that changes everything forever. And with those few words, the entire world shifts. See, Johnny wasn't just defending his friend. He was lashing out at Bob, the very same Sock who had beaten him half to death just a few months earlier. This was personal, and in that one instant, that line gets crossed for good. They aren't just greasers anymore. Now, they're fugitives. So they're terrified, they're on the run, and they turn to the only person they think can help, the tough-as-nails Dally Winston. And his advice is pretty grim. Get out of town, disappear, and get rid of anything that makes you. Hiding out in this old abandoned church, the first thing they have to do is erase their greaser identity. They cut off their hair. Remember how important that was? For Ponyboy, when they bleach his hair blonde, it's just devastating. It feels like he's losing the last real piece of himself. And it's during this time, hiding out, that Ponyboy recites this Robert Frost poem. And you know who gets it? Like, really gets it? Johnny. He understands that gold isn't about money. It's about the beauty of a sunrise. It's about being young, about being innocent. It's about all the good things that they can feel slipping away. And then comes this unbelievable twist of irony. These two kids, wanted for murder, who the world thinks are just violent hoods, they see their hideout on fire, with a group of school kids trapped inside. And without even thinking, they run straight into the flames. They become heroes, pulling these kids out right before the roof collapses. Now, this act of heroism gets them in the papers, but it can't stop what's already in motion. If anything, coming home just puts them back on a collision course, and it leads straight to the final tragic showdown that's been brewing since page 1. So to settle the score for good, the gangs agree to one last rumble, a huge all-out brawl. And the greasers, they fight with this crazy energy. They're fighting for pride, yeah, but mostly they're fighting for Johnny.
and they win. The Socs run off, but the victory feels empty, like the second it happens, because the real fight was being lost somewhere else. That win meant absolutely nothing. Dally grabs Ponyboy, and they race to the hospital. See, Johnny was burned really badly in that fire. His back was broken, and they burst into his room just in time to watch him slip away. With his last breath, Johnny says this to Ponyboy. He's echoing the poem from the church, but it's so much more than that. It's a plea. He's begging Ponyboy to hold on to what makes him good, to keep watching the sunsets, to not let this world make him hard and cold the way it did to Dally. For Dally, Johnny was the one and only person he ever really loved, and losing him just breaks him. He can't handle the grief, so he robs a store and he baits the cops into chasing him. He's not trying to get away. He's running towards a final deadly showdown. The guy who begged Johnny not to die just couldn't live in a world without him. So when the cops have him surrounded, Dally pulls out a gun he knows is unloaded, basically forcing them to shoot. And as Ponyboy realizes in that awful moment, Dally always got what he wanted. And in the end, what he wanted was to die. So after all that loss, 2 friends gone in one night, Ponyboy is just numb. How do you even begin to make sense of all that violence? And that question brings us to the really powerful end of this story. It turns out Johnny left one last message for him. Tucked into a copy of Gone with the Wind, Ponyboy finds a letter. And in it, Johnny tells him again to stay gold. And he asks him to do something, to tell Dally that there's still good in the world. Of course, it's too late to tell Dally, but it's a message for all the other boys who feel like outsiders too. And reading those words, it's like a light goes on for Ponyboy. He finally knows what he has to do. Someone has to tell their story, not just the fights and the anger, but the loyalty, the humanity behind that greaser label. He realizes that if people could just understand their side of things, maybe they wouldn't be so quick to judge. And so, for an English assignment, Ponyboy Curtis sits down and starts to write. He decides he's going to tell the world about his friends, about what happened, and about boys who were just hoping for something better. And he starts his story with the exact same words that started the entire novel, bringing us full circle. We realize the book we've just read is his story. It's his way of showing the world that those labels we get stuck with, they're never the whole story. And that's a lesson that is just as important today as it ever was.
If you're finding this summary valuable, do me a quick favor and hit the like button. And if you want more wisdom from the world's best books, make sure you're subscribed.